In this video, we'll discuss Earthwork Volumes. If you'd like to follow along with this video, please open the file earthworkvolumes.dwg located in the training folder as discussed in the Working with this Dataset video. When a quantity takeoff criteria is applied to a sample line group, a material list is added to the sample line group properties. You can then use this material list to create a volume table or report or a mass haul diagram. In this video, we will examine the process for creating an earthwork volume report and creating a table as well. The first thing we want to do is actually create a new sample line group that will sample the sources that we want to report on in a separate sample line group. We already have one that we use for creating cross-section views, but let's create a separate one that will be a little more accurate. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to freeze this sample line group as it's on its own unique layer. So I'll go to the Home tab, Layers panel, we'll use the Layer Freeze command, and now that layer is frozen. To create our new sample lines, we'll go to the Profile and Section Views panel in the Home tab and click on Sample Lines. Right-click to select the correct alignment, which is Bypass 1, and click OK. Now, because we already have a sample line group created, we are prompted to just create additional sample lines. In this case, we want to create a brand new sample line group that will be used for our volume and material calculations. Click on the drop-down here and choose Create Sample Line Group. We'll begin with an exclamation point, so this goes to the top of the list when we're creating volume calculations. This will make it a little bit easier. And we'll say for material and volume calculations. Now we need to toggle on and off the sources that we need. We don't need everything. All we need is existing ground, the corridor model, and the subgrade surface. So we can turn off finished grade, any of our pipe network objects, and the surface that comes from the corridor object. Click OK, and let's go ahead and define this by station ranges from the beginning of the project to the end of the project. Clicking the drop down here, I'll select by range of stations. The beginning of our project is 150, and the end of our project, we'll click on this field and select the pick button right here, and then navigate to the end of our project and snap to the end of the actual alignment. For our left swath and right swath, we want 200 feet, so I'll click in here and type 200, and the same thing for the right swath. Note that even though this may go beyond the extent of our corridor object, it does not matter. It will only calculate volumes and materials within the boundaries of the actual corridor model. We'll change our increments to 25 foot for tangents, 25 foot for curves. Make sure you adjust your range start to true, as well as the range end to true as well, and select OK. This will create a sample line group on its own layer for volume calculations. To do volume calculations or any kind of earthwork volumes, we need to go to the Settings tab to look at how this is processed. In the Settings tab, Quantity Takeoff Area, there is a quantity takeoff criteria that you need to define for earthwork and material volumes. I do not have an earthwork volume yet, so let's go ahead and create one. To create a new quantity takeoff criteria, we will right-click on Quantity Takeoff Criteria and choose New. Go to the Information tab, and we'll give this a name of Earthwork. Go to the Material list, and there are two data types that you can add in here, a surface or a corridor shape. First, let's create a new material. So click on Add New Material, and we'll also call this one Earthwork, and press Enter. In the quantity type, click on that and choose Earthworks. Now we need to add a surface. So we'll first start with the Combined DG and click the plus sign, and this will be our base surface. Note that there are options for cut and fill factors depending on the surface type that you have. You also have refill factors as well, depending on the specifications for your project. There's also a shape style, and this will actually display in the cross-section view if you so desire it to, and we'll leave it at basic. Let's go ahead and add our comparison surface by selecting the subgrade and choose the plus sign, and then in the condition column, changes to the compare type. Click OK. We now have a new quantity takeoff criteria called Earthwork. Let's go ahead and compute our materials now. To do so, there's a couple of ways. The fastest way is to select the actual sample line and go to the Launchpad panel and choose Compute Materials. Notice how it goes right to that alignment, as well as the sample line group goes to the top of the list because we put the exclamation point there. Click OK. In the Quantity Takeoff Criteria dropdown, select the Earthwork Quantity Takeoff Criteria we just created. Note the options available to calculate your volume. You can do average end area, which is the standard way of doing it, but you can also do prismoidal and composite volumes as well. Make sure you toggle on curve correction tolerance, as this will enable curve correction around curves in your alignment. Note how we are prompted to select our EG and subgrade. So we'll click on the Combined EG, And then for subgrade, we want bypass 1-subgrade. Click OK, and the earthwork volumes are calculated. Press Escape to clear your selection set. Now let's say we wanted to add a table to our file to show the volume calculations. To do so, in the quantity takeoff category, there are table styles for doing so. We have total volume and material. We are interested in the total volume table styles. If I click on the cut and fill, and then right click and then edit, this is where you change any of the properties for a table for earthwork volumes. If we go to the data properties tab, to change any of the columns or remove them, simply click on the plus or the X sign. And then to change or edit any of the values that the columns are displaying, just simply double click in here and choose the appropriate property that you want from the properties dropdown. To control any of the other parts of the table, you have text settings right here to control the title style, header style, and data style, as well as some other table settings here. And then of course you have the display tab, which controls what components should be turned on or off, as well as what layer those components should go on. To create a table, simply select the sample line and click on Add Tables and select Total Volume from the dropdown. Here's the table style that we just looked at, the alignment, the sample line group, and then you can split the table if you'd like to, so let's just leave it at 20. And of course, you probably want it to be dynamic. That way, if any of the quarter model or any of the objects change, the table will update automatically. Click OK and place it in the drawing. Notice how the table is placed properly based on the parameters that I defined in there. If you want to change any of the settings or the way the table is actually displaying, simply select it. Click on Table Properties here, and let's say we want to change this to 40 rows, and now it's updated the tables to reflect that change. Because this part adds a little more dynamic functionality, which can slow your drawing down a little bit, you may want to instead create a table report and then print that out in Excel or plot it from Excel. To do so, I'll select my sample line again, and from the Launchpad, I'll choose Generate Volume Report. Verify that the alignment is set to bypass 1, and the sample line group is for material and volume calcs. And as far as how to report on these, there's something called style sheets. So what's first going to happen is Civil 3D will create an XML report, and then a style sheet is used to report on that XML data. If I click the Browse button here, and as you can see, we now have some predefined style sheets that I can use to generate my reports. For Earthworks, you want to use the earthworks.xsl file. We'll click Open, and then we'll click OK. Internet Explorer opens up a dialog box warning you about scripts, and you want to say yes. And there's our volume report. If you want to export this out to Excel, simply right-click and export to Microsoft Excel. Now, let's say we actually want to display that table in a section view. So with a section selected, I'm going to actually create a section view of just this section. I'll go through the wizard to verify all the settings. And in the section display options, you'll notice that there is now an earthwork category. I also want to make sure that no label styles will display, so I'll click in the Change Labels column, and I'll simply set the surfaces here to no labels. And then for my bypass 1 corridor model, let's set this to View-Edit. And here's where you define the style, which is by default the one that was selected in the quantity takeoff criteria for the actual volume calculation. We'll click Next. I do not want any data bands, so I'll set this to none. And then when I click Next here, you'll notice that there's now this option for section view tables. I could do total volume or material. In this case, we don't have a material just yet, so let's select the total volume, and a table style is defined right there. We'll click Add. We'll just leave the default settings, and I'll show you in a second how you can actually change that. We'll click Create Section View, put this in the drawing, and as you can see, we now have a table defined next to this section. If you had multiple section views, this table could display next to all of them, and you could print that out to do any kind of checking or as a record copy for your volume calculations. Now, this is obviously not in a very good location, so how do you change it? Press Escape to clear your selection set, select the section view, and then we'll go to the section view properties, and in the volume tables tab, I can change the anchor about which this table will display. So I want this to be displayed at the bottom right. Click Apply, and notice how it automatically puts it in that location. I could also change the anchor of the table itself, but top left is the top left part from the bottom right part of the section view. Select OK, and there's my table in the section view.